Hello again, everybody. Good morning. Nice to see you all. And it is our final week of home learning, which is great news, isn't it? We're going to be back in school very, very soon. 1 week today, in fact, 1 week today, you will be back in school, all of us back together in the classroom. And I have to say, I'm really looking forward to seeing you all. I know it's been a long, hard slog for many of you. It's been really tough, but you are very, very nearly there at the end. And actually, this week's going to be really good fun. So we've got lots of nice, exciting lessons coming up. And of course, we have our World Book Day celebration on Thursday. So do watch out for that and get involved. There'll be lots of things to do on our YouTube channel and lots of nice activities for you at home. Okay, today we are going to start by thinking in literacy all about a particular skill which we're going to need a lot of. Firstly, though, I just want to recap what we looked at last week. So on Thursday and Friday of last week, you were doing some excellent character description. And this is the kind of thing that we were writing. Lisa jumped off the ground, punching the air as she leaped. She cheered loudly, and the smile on her face was as wide as an ocean. And this was us trying to show and not tell our reader how our characters were feeling. So I've been thinking how we can describe our characters really effectively. And we said, right, well, rather than just saying, for example, in this case, that our character was feeling happy or excited, we showed our reader that by describing what they were doing. So rather than just saying the emotion, we were saying what that character might be doing at that time. And that was that effective bit of descriptive writing we were doing last week. Now, we're still thinking about character description this week, and we're going to be building up to making a character of our own on World Book Day and then actually writing a short story about them. But for today, though, we're going to need to focus on one particular skill that's really, really important. And it's going to be included in pretty much any kind of story writing you ever do. In fact, it's something you are doing quite a lot in your writing at the moment, but maybe not as accurately as we'd like. So that's why we're going to be thinking about it today. Now, let's firstly look at a few examples of where this kind of thing is going wrong. This is something I see a lot in not just pupils' books, but actually all over the place. Let's see if you can spot what's happening in some of these. Attention, toilet only for disabled, elderly, pregnant children. Now, I don't know about you, Year 3, but I certainly don't know any elderly children, and hopefully not any pregnant children either. This is really weird, isn't it? You can't be elderly, disabled, pregnant, and a child all at the same time. This clearly isn't right, is it? It's lacking some punctuation, and it can lead to really sort of funny errors like this. Here's another one. You're now leaving the premises of Park Royal Penyang. Caution, be careful of parasailing horses and buggies on the beach. Now, I'd love to see a parasailing horse. That would be a real skill. Here's another one. Eat, Ray, love. Rachel Ray finds inspiration in cooking her family and her dog. I don't know who Rachel Ray is, but she sounds like she needs locking up, cooking her family. Now, all of these are examples of where, and you can see these are sort of adults that have done this, professionals, writers, designers, and so on. They've all not put in the punctuation that's needed here. I'm assuming Rachel Ray doesn't like cooking her family, but she likes cooking and her family. So we probably want a comma in there to separate that up, wouldn't we? Cooking, that's one thing. Her family, that's the second, and her dog. There's three things there. It's not one thing, which is cooking her family and her dog, which would be really, really bad. No one wants to see that. So this just goes to show, doesn't it, that punctuation is really, really important. And I see this kind of thing in your work quite a lot. Well, maybe not quite a lot, but from time to time. Certainly as a teacher, I've seen quite a lot of sentences like this. Just try reading this out loud, if you don't mind. Just maybe pause the video here. Try and read all of this out loud. Hopefully, what you're kind of seeing there is that it's actually really difficult to do. It's quite hard to read something when there's no punctuation, because the punctuation in a piece of writing, it gives your reader the kind of clues they need. It tells your reader when they need to pause with a full stop, when they need to maybe put in a little mini pause with a comma, where certain things are said like a question, where certain things are said out loud. It really, punctuation is about telling your reader what it is you're trying to communicate to them. And in our writing, that's always what we're trying to do, isn't it? We're trying to communicate our ideas when written down. And if we don't put in the punctuation, it can mean that the meaning that we're trying to communicate to our reader doesn't quite get across. So punctuation is essential. It's really, really important. And it can help your reader clearly understand what you're trying to say. If you don't use punctuation, the meaning of your writing may be lost. Now, what we're going to think about today is how we can punctuate speech in our writing. Now, by speech, I mean what characters are saying to each other. And because we're doing some character description and we're going to be writing a story with some characters, there's definitely going to be some speech. Our characters are going to say things. And so we need to be able to punctuate that really effectively. It's one of the most common errors I see in pupils' writing. They will have lots and lots of speech in their writing. Their characters will be saying things to each other, but it all becomes a bit of a mess because you haven't got the speech that we need, the speech punctuation that we need. So let's imagine this little exchange here between a teenage boy called Bill and his dad. "What's for dinner, Dad?" said Bill. "Pizza, I hope," replied Dad. Now, we punctuate speech like this using something called inverted commas. Now, you're going to hear me say that a lot, so just say it with me so that we all know how to pronounce it. It's inverted commas. Now, I've put in this little box here. This is really for mums and dads in particular who might be going, "I've never heard of inverted commas." It's a speech mark or a quotation mark. Your friend and mine, Michael Gove, when he was in charge of education, he made sure we all call these now inverted commas. So mums and dads, don't be confused. It's a speech mark or a quotation mark, whatever you normally call it. In school, right the way up, through school now, we call them inverted commas. So really, really good if mums and dads as well, if you can aim to be saying inverted commas, don't be tempted and don't forget, don't call them speech marks or quotation marks. In school, in UK schools now, they are called inverted commas. Don't ask me why. I did an English degree. Don't know why they changed it. Anyway, inverted commas. So inverted commas are what we want. And inverted commas, you've seen this in books and things before. I'm sure you know what these look like. Inverted commas are little speech marks or quotation marks. They look like this. They are two lines that go around something people have said. You might have seen people do this actually. They're sort of they're showing that it's something someone said. If you see people do this in TV shows and films, it's showing that it's something someone said. So inverted commas go around anything characters or people are saying. They hug tightly to the words which would come out of the person's mouth. So you can see in this case here, "What's for dinner, Dad?" is what Bill said. So it's "What's for dinner, Dad?" which we put in that inverted comma. And then what the dad replies is "Pizza, I hope." So the bit that's in the inverted commas is "Pizza, I hope." If you're wondering why they're called inverted commas, it's because they look a little bit like a comma. So it's kind of one little small line like a comma is, but it's inverted. And inverted means the opposite. So commas come at the bottom of a line, inverted commas are at the top of a line. So when you're doing your writing, inverted commas right at the very top of the line, like you can see here. One point I did just want to mention, actually, you might be more familiar with seeing these with one line. And this is something apparently often it happens in books. Books have one line, inverted commas. Now, I've tried to look into why this is, and there's not a clear answer. I have heard apparently it's because if you imagine a sort of big, thick adult's book, a sort of 500-page book, if you change the two-line inverted commas down to one-line inverted commas, you probably save a page or two across the book. And then, of course, a page or two times by however many copies the book sells, the publishers will save some money. I don't know if that's true, but yeah, if you see inverted commas with one line at the top of the line, really it's the same thing. It's just showing that that's something someone said. So don't get thrown if you're looking in your book later on this evening and you see that they've got one line inverted commas. Really it's the same thing, but in our writing, we've got loads of room. We don't worry about that. We will use two lines for our inverted commas. You might sometimes hear them described as a little 66 and then a 99 as well, because sometimes in books you'll see the kind of font they do, oh, that's a rubbish one, isn't it? The font they do will look a little bit more like a 66 or a 99 when there's, oh, this is rubbish, sorry, where there's a kind of thicker bit at the top and then a little curvy line. So yeah, you can sort of see how that would look a bit like a 66 and a 99. Let's say something like high in the middle. So yeah, that's just a sort of a different font. So again, don't be confused if you see one somewhere else, and it's got a little 66 and a 99. It's all the same thing. It's just showing you that the thing inside of it is what someone's saying. A really good way, oh, I suppose spelling mistake, sorry. A really good way to check your inverted commas are correct, or your inverted commas. A good way to check your inverted commas are in the correct place is by saying out loud what you have written inside the inverted commas. And if you've got it right, it will kind of sound like what the conversation is actually saying. If you don't, you'll realize quite quickly it's wrong. I'll show you what I mean. Here is a conversation between two characters. "Hi, Fran," said Mr. Vass. "Nice to meet." They wouldn't say it like that, would they? In this case, Mr. Vass wouldn't say, "Hi, Fran," said Mr. Vass. When you meet your friends in the morning, you don't say, "Hi, Yaman," said Ollie. That wouldn't make sense. You just say, "Hi, Yaman," said Ollie. So the said Ollie bit in that case, or the said Mr. Vass bit here, isn't actually something that someone said. So I'm going to get rid of these ones here. We don't want those there. What is it Mr. Vass is actually saying? It's "Hi, Fran," so it would go there. And likewise here, it's not "Nice to meet you, Mr. Vass," said Fran. This is going to need to come back here. "Nice to meet you, Mr. Vass," said Fran. There we go. Lovely. Okay. Sorry. Right. You might have noticed that the speech we've seen so far also has what I'm going to call a reporting clause. Now, don't get too bogged down in what that means. That's not a piece of vocabulary you kind of really need to know, but so we've got a name for it. It's a reporting clause. But really, that's just something like "said Maddie," "replied Leo," "shouted Thomas," "whispered Poppy." You get the idea. It's a word that means the same as "said" or a synonym for "said." So like "said," "replied," "shouted," "whispered," "cried," "laughed," whatever, and then a person's name. So we just know that that's something we tag on to the kind of speech bit so that we know who's saying it and how they've said it. So "shouted Thomas," for example. We're going to look in these in a bit more detail tomorrow. Particularly, we're going to sort of fiddle around with where they come in a sentence. But for now, we just need to know that when we've got some speech, normally we'll have a little bit on it as well that says who said it and how they've said it. Oh, right, there's a lot of information here, isn't there? If the speech would normally have a question mark or an exclamation mark in it, it still needs one. And this goes inside of the inverted comma with the rest of what's being said. Now, I've got two sentences here that I'd like you to pause the video and tell me how you would punctuate it. Or maybe if you've got a bit of pen and paper, you could quickly copy these ones out with the correct punctuation. So the sentence is, "Can I start writing now?" said B. And "Only once you've learnt the next bit," replied Mr. Vass. So have a think, where are the inverted commas going to go? And also, I've said that these ones have a question mark and an exclamation mark that needs to come inside of the inverted comma. Because what B is saying there is a question, so it's going to need a question mark. And I've replied with something that's going to need an exclamation mark. So make sure those go in the correct place, please. Have a go at that now. Hopefully we've got then that our inverted commas are going to go around this bit. "Can I start writing now?" That's what B has said. And because that's a question, it's going to need a question mark inside of that as well. And down here again, it's going to come at the start. "Only once you've learned the next bit." And that's where our inverted commas go, and our exclamation mark will come inside of that. Final page. If the speech doesn't have a question mark or an exclamation mark, you need to separate it from that reporting clause at the end with a comma. Now, this isn't an inverted comma, which comes at the top of the line. This is a normal comma, so it comes at the bottom of the line. And you can see in these examples here, it goes inside the inverted comma. So it's still part of what's being said. And it's just that little comma at the bottom there, which will separate the speech bit from your reporting clause, which is something like "said Yaman" or "replied Ollie." That just helps your reader again to separate those two bits. So I've got "Hello," said Yaman. "Hi," replied Ollie. "Let's go and play football," said Espen. "Okay," agreed Dylan. Okay then, right, hopefully you are feeling up to speed with this. This is something that, again, you will have seen loads in your books and things. I'm sure you've seen inverted commas probably thousands of times in your life before, but it's something that it's only part of the year 3 curriculum, so it's only kind of introduced to you now. And it can be a bit fiddly, because I think we're probably quite familiar with this idea of needing to put what we're saying around inverted commas or speech marks, you might know them as, but there are a few fiddly bits, like, for example, where does the exclamation marks go, where do the question marks go, and the fact that we need this little comma in here as well to separate it from the main, from the reporting clause. So see if you can really focus on those kind of trickier elements, which is that we've got the exclamation mark and question mark inside of the inverted commas. And if it doesn't have either of those things, remembering that we need a comma to separate it. Okay, so your task for today then, I'd like you to write down for me 10 sentences which use inverted commas, or more if you'd like to show something you might hear on the school playground. So imagine that it's 1 week from now, you are in school with us here, we're all out on the playground playing happily together. I want you to think of some things that you might hear out on the playground, because it's really noisy, people are always saying things or shouting things. What sorts of things might you hear? Just think about some of your friends. What might your friends say to you? What might teachers on duty say? Have a good go at writing me some speech that you might hear out on the playground. So here are my examples. Put down that branch, shouted Mr. Neves. Shall we play on the airwalkers? Asked Neha. Let's go play football, said AJ. Here are some examples of the types of things you might hear. You can tailor that to whatever you and your friends normally do at break time. Okay, thanks everyone. Enjoy doing that, and I'll see you back for our maths lesson after this.